What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and considering that we are about to be on the international break, I figured now would be a good time to do a next episode of the Plastic Podcast. So, for those of you that this is your first one watching, the reason I call it the Plastic Podcast is because I get called a plastic fan all the time because people disagree with my opinions. So, of course, that makes me a plastic fan, right? So, I've just decided to accept the moniker because why not? So we're just going to talk about some Chelsea stuff. First thing I wanted to talk about is going to be very quick is our draw for the Champions League quarterfinals and then the FA Cup semifinal. Of the two, actually, the one I'm more, I guess, excited about, more confident in, is actually the FA Cup game. And the main reason for that is obviously we got the easiest team out of everybody left in the Champions League in Porto. But the problem with that is now we've got an expectation that we should be winning this game. And I always feel like that makes the game so much more difficult. Like we saw it in the FA Cup against Sheffield. We should have blown past Sheffield. I mean, they've got basically nothing to play for. This is the only thing they have to play for, but they're not good. They're not playing well this season. They're not having a good season. We should just easily push past them, but that makes the game harder. Because they've got no expectations and we have expectations, we have pressure on us that we should be succeeding, it always adds that extra element of difficulty. So, Porto, obviously the one team left that's not quite the same level as everybody else. You know, everybody else is kind of top of their league and then top of, like, those leagues are the top leagues in the world. Porto, I mean, the Portuguese league is not really that high up. So, obviously they've done very well to get there, and I mean beating Juventus is no small task. So they're going to give us trouble. You know, they're that team that they're not going to have a whole lot of expectations on them, which is going to free them up to play a bit more carefree and I guess with some energy. You know, they want to be the giant killers. They want to take down a team that's considered bigger than they are. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult game over both legs. Whereas the semifinal in the FA Cup against Man City, obviously Man City right now are playing at the best of their game. So it's still going to be a difficult game, but I feel like people are expecting them to win that game. You know, we're kind of the underdogs in that sense. And not that, you know, I think that Man City is just miles ahead of us, but based on current form, I mean, they are playing at the top of their level right now, and they're running away with the league. People are even wondering, can they do the quadruple this year? I don't personally think so, but it does sort of take a little bit of the pressure off of us and put it onto Man City, because I do think we are the slight underdogs in that affair. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I still feel pretty confident that we can push through against Porto. In the FA Cup, it kind of depends on who shows up that day, who shows up to play. Because I feel like either team can bring their A game and just run away with the match. But I do feel like it's going to be too close to call because that's typically how our games are, right? We never really run away with any match. It's always just 1 or 2-0, maybe a 2-1, or just a 0-0 draw. So yeah, I'll be really curious to see what happens there. But I am looking forward. I'm glad that we've managed to make it this far in both tournaments because it's a good look on our season considering we've not really been at our best. The fact that we're still in 2 other competitions is great. It would be great to be finalists in the FA Cup, so I really hope we can push through on that one. Whereas the Champions League, even if we do get past Porto, I mean, all the teams that are left are going to be real difficult. So, I don't know. I'm not really putting much stock in us making it to the finals of the Champions League, but anything's possible. Next I wanted to talk about, though, kind of rating Tuchel's job so far. And I've definitely been one of the more critical fans of Tuchel. And against everything that's been said about me on Facebook, whenever I leave my comments about frustrating things that Tuchel's doing, no, it has nothing to do with the fact that I wanted Lampard to keep his job because I frankly didn't. I was one of the ones saying he needs to be gone. He's not doing well enough. He's not doing enough. In fact, I got into a full-blown argument with some fans that were telling me that I needed to keep faith in Frank and let him have more time, because he needs time to get better. It's like, well, we don't really have time for him to improve. He's still young. He can grow. He can get better as a manager, but I don't think he's good enough right now. So I got into a full-blown argument with fans over that, and then once Tuchel came in, I had a lot of complaints and then got into full-blown arguments with fans about that, and then telling me that, oh, obviously I'm just a Lampard lover and I need to let him go. Yeah, obviously, right? No, but as far as Tuchel is concerned, though, if you watch my reviews, you know some of the stuff I'm already going to say. I don't feel like there's been enough change so far. I think in the past few games there has been. But for the first run of games, it felt like we were still stuck in that possession-based style of football, and it just didn't provide much on the attack. We still struggled to create chances. We still struggled to get the ball into the final third. We still struggled to get guys in the box looking like they wanted to attack it. That has improved in the past few games, and that's fantastic. Obviously, the one criticism that's still going to come against him is he's not got the front line firing. We're creating more chances, but we're not capitalizing on those chances. And so even though we still have control of the game, we still, we look the better team, we're still dominant, the game still ends 1 or 2-0 because we're not putting away our chances. It should be 4 or 5-0, but it ends 1 or 2-0. And it's something that he's got to figure out. And whether that comes through a change in personnel or if it's just a matter of he's got to build up the confidence of the strikers, I don't know. It's kind of one of those catch-22s. Like, do you push forward to try to really push to finish and then possibly give up down at the other side? Or do you just say, you know what, we can get that one goal, we create enough chances, we'll get at least one, let's look to at least be a bit more defensively solid and focus on that so that way we don't concede and we can still get that 1 or 2 goals. It's kind of up in the air on which one do you work on more. Personally, I do feel like, because of the talent we have up front, it feels like we should be finishing more, because all of these players have shown that they can finish in the past. We've seen it from all of them at different clubs, or, if they've been at Chelsea for a couple of years, we've seen them finish before. So it's not like they can't do it. It's just either a lack of motivation or lack of mentality, something along those lines. And I don't know how much Tuchel can do to change that. So that it's something that I'm curious to see what he's going to do to try to fix that before the end of the season. And if he can't fix it, it'll be interesting to see, can he change it into next season? Can we fix that problem? Because ultimately, a good defense will do wonders, but it's still going to end in a couple of draws because if you're not scoring enough, eventually that's going to come back to bite you. But yeah, overall, I've been pleased with Tuchel. I have liked what I've seen in the past few games. I feel like we're finally starting to see a bit more of the free-flowing attacking that I feel like a lot of fans were expecting to see. Some fans were saying we were definitely seeing it at first. I don't know what they were seeing. But we're definitely starting to see that more push to get the ball forward instead of just constantly, I don't have any options, I'm just going to drop it back, and then we're going to drop it back to the keeper, and then he's going to push it out wide, and then we're going to drop it right back to the keeper. It was just boring, slow, repetitive, and not really very energetic. And that's definitely changed. So good to see there. For the most part, I feel like everything he's done has pushed us in the right direction and has gotten us on the right track. And the fact that we've not lost is definitely a good bonus. I talked about it before, how the results improved, but the play didn't. The results improving is enough to say he's doing a good enough job, because obviously if the play is not improved much, but you're at least getting the wins now, whereas Lampard, the play wasn't good and the results weren't good, there is something to be said about, okay, well, at least he's getting the results, even if I'm not really a fan of what he's doing on the pitch. But the fact that now the play has improved too is a good sign, and hopefully a sign of what's to come in the future. So the final thing I wanted to talk about is some of the transfer rumors, because we are getting closer to the end of the season, which means summer transfer window will be opening soon. And so I did want to talk about some of my thoughts about players that might possibly come in. Obviously, the one big transfer rumor surrounding Chelsea right now, and I guess some of the players that might be leaving. So, of course, first of all the talk is that Erling Haaland will be coming to Chelsea. There's a lot of talk he's going to be coming to the Premier League, I should say. But I have seen a lot of news articles saying that because Tuchel has that Dortmund connection with him, there is a good chance that he will look to come to Chelsea. But then I've also seen, Dortmund doesn't want to sell a player to a Tuchel run team because they had a falling out with him and they don't really like him. And I've also seen, he's not going to Man U because, who was it? I think it was Michael Keane or Roy Keane? not Michael Keane. Michael Keane's playing now. Yeah, Roy Keane like broke his dad's leg or something back in the day. So it's like, oh, why would he ever go there? Well, he wouldn't do that. He's never going to Man U. So of course all the rumors are going to fly about what team is going to choose. If he does come to Chelsea, that would be fantastic because everything that I've seen from him shows that he is a clinical finisher, and that's something we do need right now. So if Tuchel's not able to get Werner or Abraham or even Giroud firing by the end of the season, I could definitely see us going after somebody like Haaland, just because we do need somebody that can finish. We do need somebody that one-on-one with the keeper, they're not going to put it right at him. They're going to find a corner. So, yeah, it would be really nice to bring him in, and I do feel like that would kind of cement us as true title contenders because that's the one thing we lack right now. Everything else on the pitch is going fine. Defensively, we've looked good. In the midfield, we've looked solid. Up top is where we're still lacking. So he would be a fantastic buy for us. If not him, I still feel like we would need to go look for a striker. There's a lot of talk that Harry Kane might be leaving Tottenham because he's just not happy. And, I mean, understandably so. He's been kind of carrying them for a few years now. He would be another one I would like to try to go get if we could, because I've always really respected Harry Kane as a striker, and I feel like everything he does, he's a complete striker. He can assist, he can score, he brings a little bit of everything. So I've always thought if we could go get him, but problem is he's always seemed to be a very much one club man. But there has been a lot of rumors that he's not happy at Tottenham anymore. So maybe we could go get him, maybe not. If not, then basically just any striker we could go get that is known to finish. And of course, sometimes when you bring in strikers from other leagues, it's harder. We've seen that with Havertz, we've seen it with Werner, both of them tearing it up their clubs last season, and then they come into the Premier League, and it's different, it's difficult. So it's always hard to judge who's going to come in and just blow apart the league. Who's going to come in and just finish every game. So I understand the difficulty, but I do feel like you can look at the way that some strikers play and determine, are they going to be a good fit for us, and also are they going to be a good fit in the Premier League? I feel like with Werner, he's starting to grow a little bit more, but you could tell when he first came in, he wasn't really that strong. His pace was fine, but playing for a club where most of the teams are going to sit back against you and he doesn't have the ability to get in behind, he was going to struggle. I mean, that was going to be apparent. With Havertz, obviously, he's got a bigger body. He's much more clean with his touch, and he's looking to get the possession and look to play quickly. So I feel like he's one that could grow more into the league more quickly than Werner could. So I feel like if you're looking for a striker, you can see which ones are going to be like the more big body, willing to put in a challenge, and also are able to finish under pressure and really look to fill that position. As far as the strikers we do have, obviously Werner, he is starting to get better. He is starting to find the spaces in behind, so it's good to see there. Abraham's kind of been in and out this season. He's had some good moments. He's had some off moments. He's been injured recently, so not able to feature. And then Giroud has had his ups and downs this season as well. He's always been kind of a consistent finisher for us, and he's not really had that consistency this season. So of the three, I could definitely see Giroud being the one to be let go to allow another striker to come in if we look to get one. Because as much as I love what Giroud has done at our club and what a great servant he's been, it's definitely not showing this season. It feels like his performances have been dwindling a little bit. His touch is not as clean. He's not as able to get on the end of crosses. And it just feels like he's not really been as involved as I remember him being like near the end of last season. So of the three, I feel like he would be the one to go. And then as far as like everywhere else on the field, I can't really think of many other positions that we need to go look for somebody. I feel like on the left, Chilwell and Alonso are kind of both fighting for the spot. Neither of them are playing fantastically right now, but they're both doing okay. They're doing their jobs well. And I feel like Emerson has shown some grit and some desire to play over the past couple games that he's featured. So there's also another option there. On the right side, James is a good option. He's still young. Hudson-Odoi has shown a couple good performances out there. So he's another one I feel like you could rotate between the two. And then Azpilicueta is a third option, just because he can also play the wing-back position. He's not the best at it, but he's solid enough. And then defense, you've got Silva has just signed an extension to his contract. Christensen's playing well. Zuma's playing well. Rudiger's playing well. Spilicueta can still play back there. You've got Tamori, who's out on loan, who, from what I understand, is playing pretty well at AC Milan. We got that Sarr kid that just came in. Ampadu, I wouldn't really consider him a center back. I feel like he's better more as a kind of a center mid distributor type. I'm watching him play at Sheffield, and I don't think he's a defender. Watching some of the movements he makes, he's more reacting defensively, but when he's on the ball, he looks fine. So I feel like he wouldn't necessarily be a good option to play in the back line. But of course, it's just whatever the coach wants to see. But Ampadu's an option. Gahey, I understand, is doing very well at Swansea right now. So we've got a lot of young players that are playing pretty well. So I don't necessarily think we need to go get a center back at the moment, especially since Silva's sticking around, because he provides the experience and the knowledge and can kind of help guide the youngsters as they're coming into the back line. But at the same time, it might also be a good idea to look for another more experienced defender. Maybe once Silva leaves, we can have them on kind of like growing into it, because I don't think Christensen has really taken up that role of leader. I don't know if he will or not. Based on some of his performances, it seems like he doesn't really read the game well enough to be that kind of manager back there. But who knows? He could still learn. Still has the potential, I think. So we'll see what happens back there. But I personally don't think we need any defenders. In the midfield, I could see us going for a midfielder. Because right now, with the way we're playing, we've got the two in the middle. Conte is definitely one of the two. Kovacic and Jorginho kind of depends. Gilmore, it also kind of depends. And then, of course, you've got Loftus-Cheek coming back. You've got Barkley coming back. Mount can play in there. Gallagher can play there. So you've got a lot of options there. I feel like you're going to have to thin it out a little bit, mainly because it's two positions. And most of the time you want Conte to be one of those two. If he's available, if he's fit, you want him to be one of those two because he just runs the midfield when he's at the top of his game. Kovacic, I feel like you probably want to have as your second. So if Conte's not available, you want Kovacic to be your consistent in there because he's so good at reading the game. He's so good about getting out of tight situations and just managing to keep possession in the midfield. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up. I think Jorginho has shown a little bit more of the past few games, but he's still not quite up to the speed. Whereas Gilmore, I think, has the speed, but he also doesn't have the size to handle it sometimes. Loftus-Cheek and Barkley, I don't think they could really provide a whole lot out of that because they have their moments where they pop up and they do something fantastic, but for the most part, they struggle to help us, especially defensively. I feel like both of them lack that. Gallagher, I think, could be a good addition just because he is one of those players that looks very lively, looks to run around, put pressure on the ball, but then also look to create something when he's on it. So a lot of good options in midfield, but I don't necessarily think we need to go get another midfielder either, just because I feel like Conte is your world-class midfielder, and then you've got some solid midfielders, so we don't really have a necessity there. You might look, though, to possibly move on a couple. I think Barkley could be one that we move on just because he's not shown much of anything since he's been here. He's done okay at Aston Villa, but that's at Aston Villa where, it's not the same style of play. It's a little bit different. Same thing at Everton. He looked good at Everton too. So I don't think he's a player that's going to fit in here. Loftus-Cheek, I think, could possibly be the next one to go just because he's been so up and down with his performances. Even at Fulham, I've seen a couple games where he's looked pretty good, but then I've also seen a couple games where he's been completely non-existent on the field, and it's not because he's on the bench. So, I feel like those two might be the two that could get moved on, whereas Gallagher, even though West Brom have not been playing well, he's definitely been the bright spark at West Brom, whereas Barkley has been one of a couple that have been playing okay at Aston Villa. Loftus-Cheek has not really been the focus for Fulham, so Gallagher has definitely been one of the better players at West Brom. So he's one that I could see coming back and really putting in a good shift. And then as far as the attacking midfielders, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult because what are you looking for in your attack? Are you looking for wide players? Are you looking for more guys that can stay inside and can dribble through a crowd? So we've got Ziyech, we've got Pulisic, we've got Mount, we've got Hudson-Odoi, you've got Havertz, Werner can drop in there and play. So you've got a lot of options to choose from there. However, I do feel like unless Ziyech can recapture the form or Pulisic can capture the form that we saw last season, or well, I guess earlier this season, and for Pulisic it was last season, unless they can get back to that point, I do feel like we need another option there. Because they've both kind of been in a little bit of a rut. Obviously, Ziyech has scored a couple goals, but his performances has still not quite been the same level that we saw earlier in the season. Pulisic, obviously, I think if you tried to play a drinking game every time Pulisic played and the commentators talked about his, what was it called, Project Restart, every time they mentioned Project Restart and Pulisic, if you take a drink, you'd probably be sloshed by the first half. So he's still struggling, and I don't know why that is, but you can definitely tell he's not quite the same player that he was last season. He has his bright spots, he has his moments where he comes up with something brilliant, but he's not really playing at the same level with the same intensity and even with the same clinical nature that we saw last season. So I don't know what it's going to take for him to refine that form. But if he can't, and if Ziyech can't get back to what we saw earlier this season, then all you've really got is you've got Havertz, you've got Mount, and then you've got Hudson-Odoi. And that's about it. There aren't really many other players that we have. As far as lone players, obviously Loftus-Cheek can play up there, Barkley can play up there, I'm sure Gallagher could slide in there as well. But none of those players are really playing at that same level that we need from our attack. So I really do think that might be another position that we strengthen, aside from the striker, unless one of these players, that aren't really firing right at the moment, unless they can start to show us something different. If Barkley comes back and he's playing the same level that we've seen him play at Aston Villa, then fantastic. He can be one of those front three. If Ziyech or Pulisic can step up and show that they've got what it takes and they can show us the form that we've seen from them before, then fantastic. They can also take that position. But if none of them are really showing us much of anything, if they're still kind of playing at that same level, I feel like we will be looking for another attacking midfielder to kind of give a little bit of backup for Havertz and Mount and Hudson-Odoi. Just because, again, it's mainly our attack that needs fixing. As good as Tuchel's done coming in and fixing our back line and making sure we're not conceding, our front line has not been giving us enough. So I feel like that's where a lot of our changes will probably happen this summer, more than likely. But with all that being said, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Let me know down in the comment section. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Plastic Podcasts and Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.